In this OSE training video, we will show you how to edit your requirements and other artifact data in Markdown format. If you don't know what Markdown is, it's an industry standard mechanism for having text-based requirements or content, also for documentation in it, but being able to generate from that Markdown different output types like PDF, Word, HTML, and etc. So it's very, very flexible, and it's the mechanism inside OSE that we prefer. We are using GitLab, which is a very specific type of Markdown. So the demo database is using the OSE demo database. It is a database that we use for obviously demos, but also for testing and development. So it has essentially test data that acts and looks like a production environment, but that we can manipulate and then clear without affecting any kind of production database. So why did we choose Markdown and are moving away from Word? Word, we're using the mechanism. It's a 2003 XML format that we save in. We have to manipulate the text and the tags and things that are stored in OSE in order to publish and render and do hyperlinks and etc. And so it is a very complex language, the XML that comes out of Word. It's also very sizable, even though the content may not be a lot. Storing the data as XML is a lot, as well as Microsoft Office is a cost product, and we prefer not to have cost products be used with OSE because it enables you to just download and start using it. So let's get straight to the demo. So I'm going to, and the mechanism for what we're going to do here is very similar to what you would do with Word. It's just using a different format for your requirements. So I'm going to create an action. I'm going to name my action for Markdown. And then I'm going to choose the SAW requirements. And the rest has already been filled in for me. I'm now going to create my action. I'm going to set my target to SAW build 2. And again, this is, demo database test data, so SAW is just a product that we created. And then I'm going to transition down to the implement state, because that's where the branch creation widgets are. I'm going to create my working branch. Should all be very familiar to you if you've used OSEE to manipulate requirement or other engineering artifacts. Once I've created that branch, I can then go edit it in the Artifact Explorer. And that's your kind of document hierarchical view of your data. And again, this is test data, so I've got under software requirements, I have test data that is Word, but we also have a section that is Markdown. And obviously, you probably wouldn't have the word Markdown in your requirement names, but we have it there just to make it obvious that these are Markdown and it's the same type of requirements. So I'm going to double click one of these, and normally if you're doing Word, it would open your Word in Windows. Here it's open the artifact editor, and that's because the Markdown are just attributes on the artifact, just like the Word content is. But because the editor is built into OSE, you don't have to open up a separate editor. So notice here are the attributes, again, test data, but we also have new tabs down here called Markdown Edit and Markdown Preview. And those will only show if this is a Markdown type artifact. So this one is. So now I move to the Markdown Edit, and this is your edit window, and you'll be able to edit your Markdown. And we've got, like many Markdown editors, we've got some helper buttons up here. So if I want a heading, I can hit the heading. If I want bold, I can hit bold. And it just gives you a way to look at an example so that you can kind of learn Markdown as you're developing your requirements. And this is a savable editor, so notice it's got a star up here, which means it needs to be saved, so I'm going to save it. And now at any time I can go to my Markdown preview, and it's going to take that Markdown content, and in this case it's going to turn it into HTML, which is a more user-friendly, readable format. So notice it puts this in the table. Here's my bold that I put in, here's the new heading I put in, and new Markdown text. So the other thing provide is the ability to have a split editor. So a lot of people like to see their Markdown kind of as they're editing and not have to switch back and forth between tabs. So there's a button up here that just separates the two windows. And I can edit over here and then I can hit refresh over here and see that edit as it's rendered. And again, save. So now I've made the Markdown edits that I wanted to. And by the way, even though the editor is built into OSE, you can also right click and open with external editor, and that will open up whatever editor you have installed on your Windows machine that edits Markdown. And after you edit things, you save, and it will save back into the database, very similar to Word. But because the Markdown editor inside OSE is the preferred editor, that's what opens by default. So now I can do the things that I'm used to. I'm going to go back and I'm going to run a change report, which will show me my changes. So here's the is-was values. And then I'm going to go back and say, okay, I'm ready to commit. I'm going to start committing to build 2. And now it's committed. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and transition my workflow to completed because I'm done. And now if I move back to the Artifact Explorer and I have saw build here, so there's the content that I edited and committed. And there's my preview window. So you can see it on a baseline branch. So that's all for today.